It was 2 p.m. in California, the sun burning down on the parking lot outside a bar near the Naval Training Base, where a pack of loud SEAL recruits were bragging about sniper shots like they were already legends. A homeless, disabled old man in a wheelchair rolled past them quietly until his cup tipped and splashed onto a recruit's boots. The kid snapped,
"Watch where you roll, old man. You're lucky we don't toss you back into the street."
The old man didn't flinch.
In my time, we respected the veterans who bled before us.
The SEAL barked a laugh.
"You? A veteran? You can't even stand!"
The old man's eyes lifted, cold, sharp, unshakable. "I was serving," he murmured, "when your father was still figuring out his sexuality." His buddies laughed, until the recruit grabbed the old man by the shirt. "Tell me what unit you supposedly served in." The old man doesn't blink.
I ran Black Ops with the founding commandos, the early unit that became SEAL Team 6.
Then the recruit swallows hard. "What was your call sign?" The old man quietly answers, "Thor 11. Silence. Every recruit goes pale. Every SEAL had heard that name. The recruits stumble and call their commander. "Sir, he's here. Thor 11 is outside the bar. Before we start, hit subscribe and drop a comment if you believe forgotten heroes still walk among us." It was 2 p.m. in California, and the heat lay heavy on the parking lot outside a bar near the Naval Training Base. The sun beat down hard enough to turn the asphalt soft at the edges, and the air shimmered over the faded painted lines. A group of young SEAL recruits lounged around metal tables outside the bar, pounding beers, wiping sweat with their sleeves, bragging about sniper shots like they were already halfway to becoming legends. One of them slammed his bottle down so hard it rattled the whole table. "Bro, I swear that target was at least 1,000 yards, he bragged, chest-puffed. Another recruit shoved him. "Man, that's nothing. I hit 1,350 in wind you wouldn't even believe." Laughter rolled across the lot, loud and careless, echoing off the bar's dusty windows. They were young, cocky, freshly trained, and addicted to the sound of their own voices. Even the bartender wiping glasses inside looked amused, shaking his head at every loud punchline. None of them noticed the quiet figure rolling slowly across the lot. A homeless, disabled old man in a wheelchair drifted toward the bar entrance. His clothes were faded and worn, his shoes mismatched, his hair long and gray. A small beat-up cup sat in his lap, half filled with melting ice and soda from earlier in the day. His hands shook faintly as he pushed his chair, the kind of tremor that comes from injuries far older than the recruits bragging about wind adjustments. He didn't look like he belonged in a place full of uniforms and bravado. He didn't look like he belonged anywhere. And that was exactly why nobody noticed him, until his wheel hit a crack in the ground. The cup tipped, liquid splashed forward in a quick arc, and it landed directly on the boots of the loudest recruit at the table. The recruit looked down at the splatter, then up, then down again, his face twisted. "Watch where you roll, old man," he snapped. "You're lucky we don't toss you back into the street." His buddies chuckled, nudging each other, waiting for the old man to beg or apologize like people often did when embarrassed publicly. But the old man didn't do either. He simply wiped the cup with his sleeve, adjusted it in his lap, and spoke with a calmness that didn't match the tension in the air. "In my time," he said softly, "we respected the veterans who bled before us." The recruits blinked, surprised by the tone, not angry, not timid, just quietly disappointed. Then the loudest one barked a laugh. "You, a veteran! You can't even stand, man!" Another snorted. "Probably fought in World War Zero." Their laughter echoed across the lot, but the old man didn't join them. He slowly lifted his head, his eyes cutting through the sunlight like sharpened steel. And when he finally locked eyes with their recruit, something cold slid across the air. "I was serving," he murmured, "when your father was still figuring out his sexuality." Two recruits choked on their drinks. Another slapped the table so hard it nearly tipped. Even the bartender inside leaned forward, eyebrows raised. But the recruit whose boots were soaked wasn't laughing. His face reddened, his jaw clenched, and he stepped forward with the stiff shoulders of someone whose pride had been punched. You got jokes, huh? He growled. Talk all you want, old-timer, but you're no damn veteran. The old man didn't blink. What unit did you supposedly serve in? The recruit demanded, moving closer, fueled by anger and humiliation. Tell me, old man, humor me. The old man kept his eyes steady. I ran Black Ops, he said quietly, with the founding commandos. The early unit that became SEAL Team 6. The entire table fell silent. A beer bottle slipped from one recruit's hand and clinked against the ground. No one moved to pick it up. No one breathed. The loud recruit swallowed, throat bobbing. What was your call sign? The old man held his gaze for a long, unblinking second. Then, barely loud enough for the wind to carry, Thor 11. Silence hit the parking lot like a hammer. Every recruit froze. Every smirk vanished. Every ounce of bravado drained out of their bodies like cold water down a drain. Because every SEAL, even the new ones, had heard the name. Thor 11, the ghost of Black Ops, the sniper whose missions were so classified they were spoken of only in fragments. The man who vanished after a covert operation in Vietnam. The legend whose existence was half believed, half myth. Until now. One recruit whispered, "No way." Another took a half step back, eyes wide. The loud recruit stared at the old man's face like he was staring at the sun. Thor 11, in a wheelchair, homeless, right in front of them. The loud recruit stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a chair as he fumbled for his phone. His hands shook so hard he almost dropped it. He managed to dial. Only one number he could think of. "Sir," he gasped the moment the other end picked up. "Sir, he's here." A pause. "Who?" The recruit stared at the old man, now sitting completely still, gaze distant, as if remembering battles none of them could imagine. "Thor 11, the recruit whispered. "He's outside the bar." Another pause, longer this time. Then the commander's voice dropped several tones. "Stay where you are." The call ended. The young SEAL lowered the phone slowly, almost reverently, staring at the screen like it held the weight of the world. His friends watched him with pale faces, waiting for orders, waiting for anything to make sense. But all he could say, voice shaking, was, "He's coming." They straightened their uniforms. They wiped their mouths. They stood still like they were facing inspection, because Commander Rourke wasn't just any commander. He was the one who trained them, the one who broke them, the one who ran the base with iron discipline. And now, he was on his way to meet a ghost. The recruits waited in the heat, silent and sweating, eyes flicking between the road and the old man in the wheelchair, who hadn't moved a muscle since revealing his call sign. A low rumble began in the distance, growing louder, closer, heavier. The commander's vehicle. The recruits snapped to attention automatically. Fear and adrenaline locking their muscles into place. The old man looked up at the sound, not with fear, not with pride, just with the tired eyes of someone who'd been forgotten for far too long. The truck slowed, stopped. The door swung open. Commander Rourke stepped out, and the first thing he saw was the man he thought died decades ago. Rourke's next move stunned every recruit because the commander didn't shout, didn't question, didn't hesitate. He saluted. The recruits stood frozen as Commander Rourke stepped out of the truck, boots hitting the pavement with a weight that made the entire parking lot fall silent. He scanned the area like a man expecting an ambush. Then his eyes landed on the old man in the wheelchair. Everything in Rourke's face changed. His shoulders lowered, his jaw softened, his lips parted in disbelief. It was like watching a hardened warrior relive a memory he never thought he'd see again. The recruits expected shouting. They expected curses. They expected the commander to tear them apart for calling him out over a homeless stranger. But instead, Commander Rourke walked forward slowly, step by step, each footfall more careful than the last, as if approaching something sacred. When he reached the wheelchair, he stopped. Time seemed to stop with him. Then, with a sharp, practiced motion, Commander Rourke raised his hand and delivered a perfect, rigid salute. The recruits gasped. One even stepped back in shock. "Sir," Rourke whispered, voice cracking. "Is it really you?" The old man blinked once, twice, Then his lips curled into the faintest smile. "Didn't expect you to recognize me," he murmured. Rourke swallowed hard and lowered his salute. "Sir, you were listed KIA. We—" His voice broke before he could finish. He cleared his throat, trying again. "We thought Thor 11 died in 78. The recruits exchanged wide-eyed glances. The old man shifted in his wheelchair, hands resting loosely on the rims. "I almost did," he said softly. "Not in the way they wrote in the papers, but close enough." Rourke crouched down beside him, lowering himself to eye level like a man approaching royalty. "What happened to you?" he asked, the gentleness in his tone so foreign the recruits weren't sure they were hearing right. "Why are you—" He glanced at the wheelchair, then at the old man's clothes. "Why are you like this?" A gust of wind blew across the lot, carrying the scent of beer and asphalt. The old man exhaled slowly, almost as if the story weighed too much to speak. "You want to know why?" he finally said. "Because the system that trained me abandoned me." Rourke's brows furrowed. "Sir?" The old man looked past him, eyes distant. "My benefits," he said. "My pension, my ID, my service records, all of it, gone." The recruit stiffened. "Insurance fraud," the old man continued. "One clerk misfiled a document, another one corrected it. Suddenly the government had no record of my service, no record of my injuries, no record of my medals, no record of me." He tapped his chest. "I went from a ghost in Vietnam to a ghost in America." Rourke's hands curled into fists. "You couldn't get treatment?" he asked, voice trembling with controlled fury. "They told me I never served," the old man replied. "Told me I forged documents. Told me I was trying to steal benefits. Told me I was a faker." The recruits lowered their heads, shame twisting inside them. "You must have appealed," Rourke said quietly. "I did. And I lost. Every time." Rourke's jaw clenched so tight the vein in his temple pulsed. "Sir, why didn't you come to us?" he whispered. The old man's eyes softened with something almost like regret. "I tried," he admitted, "but the guys I served with, most of them were gone, dead or drifted away. And the new generation," his eyes flicked toward the recruits, "too busy proving themselves to listen to an old cripple." The recruits flinched at the sting of truth. Rourke looked up at them with a stare sharp enough to cut steel. "You touched him?" he growled. The loud recruit stepped forward, trembling. "Sir, I didn't know." "You grabbed him by the shirt?" "Yes, sir." Rourke's face hardened into something terrifying. "You ever put hands on a veteran again, and I will personally send your career to the deepest, darkest part of the Pacific. Understood?" "Yes, sir," the recruits shouted, voices shaking. Rourke turned back to Thor 11, eyes full of something like guilt. "Sir, we're fixing this, right now." The old man laughed, a dry, tired sound. "You can't fix 20 years of being erased." "Watch me," Rourke said. With that, he stood, pulled out his phone, and in a voice colder than winter steel said, "Get me the base attorney, now, and tell him we're filing suit against Pinnacle Insurance for federal fraud." The recruits exchanged stunned looks. The base attorney? Against a multi-million-dollar insurance corporation? This was no small move. Rourke paced, issuing orders like he was gearing up for war. "Also call public affairs, then veterans affairs, and I want every news station in California outside that courthouse tomorrow morning." The recruits froze. "Sir?" one whispered. The news?" Rourke glared at him. "You don't hide legends," he said. "You expose the men who tried to bury them." The old man blinked slowly. No one had fought for him like this. Not in decades, not since Vietnam, not since his team. Rourke hung up the phone and returned to him. "We're going to court," he said firmly, "and I'm going to sit beside you every step." The old man looked down at his hands. "You think the judge will care about an old man in a chair?" he murmured. Rourke's answer was immediate. "No, sir. He'll care about Thor 11. The recruit straightened, hearing the weight in those words. The old man shook his head. "You're risking your career for me," Rourke smiled faintly. "Sir, You risked your life for a country that forgot you. It's my turn." The old man felt something crack deep inside him, something he thought had died a long time ago. Hope. Rourke nodded to the recruits. "Get him in the truck," he ordered. "We're taking him back to base. He's sleeping indoors tonight." The loud recruit rushed forward, eager to redeem himself. "Sir, can I?" Rourke cut him off. "Don't touch him." Then softer. "You can open the door." The recruit nodded rapidly, face red with guilt. Rourke placed a hand on the old man's shoulder and whispered, "We're not leaving you behind again." The old man's throat tightened. For the first time in decades, someone spoke to him like he mattered. They began wheeling him toward the truck, but as they reached the curb, he paused. "Commander," he said quietly. Rourke turned. "Thank you." Rourke straightened, saluted again, and said with a thick voice, "Sir, it's an honor I never thought I'd get." As they lifted him gently into the truck, the recruits silently formed a line, not ordered, not rehearsed, pure respect. And for the first time in years, Thor 11 felt seen. The truck door closed. They drove off toward the base, toward justice, toward the fight he never expected to win. If this part moved you, please subscribe. It helps us bring forgotten heroes back into the light, where they always belonged. The next morning, the entire base seemed to know. Whispers ran through the halls like currents, stories traveling faster than truth, faster than breath. Thor 11 is alive. He's on base. Commander Rourke brought him back. Recruits stood straighter. Officers spoke softer. Even the veterans at the base gate saluted the truck as it rolled out. Inside that truck sat the old man staring out the window, watching the California sun rise over the city he once protected from shadows. His hands trembled, not from fear but from something heavier. Memories, maybe, or disbelief. Commander Rourke sat beside him, suit pressed, jaw tight, as if preparing for a battlefield instead of a courthouse. "You good, sir?" Rourke asked quietly. The old man nodded. "Just thinking." "About court?" "About how many times I walked into places like this alone," he replied. "This time, I'm not alone." Rourke softened. "Not anymore." When they arrived at the courthouse, cameras flashed instantly. Reporters swarmed the sidewalk like a storm of microphones and questions. "Is it true he's a Navy SEAL from Vietnam?" "Sir, did the insurance company falsify records?" "Why was he left homeless?" "Commander, are you risking your career?" The old man shrank back slightly, overwhelmed. Rourke immediately stepped between him and the media, pushing microphones away with a soldier's authority. "No questions until after the hearing," he growled. "Show some respect." Security escorted them inside. The courtroom buzzed. Every seat filled. Veterans, reporters, military personnel, curious civilians, even a few judges from nearby chambers who'd just happened to visit. The old man had never had an audience before, never had a crowd wanting to hear his side. His fingers tapped the wheelchair armrest nervously. At the front sat the legal team of Pinnacle Insurance. Sleek suits, polished shoes, and smug expressions that screamed confidence. They didn't even glance at him. Why would they? To them, he was just another old man trying to claw money he wasn't entitled to. Then the judge walked in. Court rose. The old man could not stand, but Rourke stood beside him, towering like a shield. "Be seated," the judge said. The old man lowered his head, heart beating slow and heavy. The insurance lawyer rose with the kind of smile that made everyone else want to punch it off. "Your Honor," he began, "we intend to prove that this man, while sympathetic, is not who he claims to be, nor did he ever serve in any special operations capacity." Gasps filled the room. Rourke's jaw clenched. The lawyer continued. "We have documentation showing no active duty record under his name, no medical discharge, no combat reports. We believe he has been impersonating a veteran for over 20 years. The old man's fingers tightened against the chair. The lawyer held up a thick file. "This is our evidence." Rourke stood instantly. "Your Honor, that file was tampered with. We have proof." The lawyer scoffed. "Proof? What proof?" Rourke stepped forward, fire in his eyes. "Me!" The courtroom murmurs grew. The judge raised a brow. Proceed. Rourke reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder with worn edges and yellowed pages. These, he said, are original field logs from Vietnam. My father served in the same operations unit. He kept copies, insider signatures, mission numbers, timestamps, and one call sign repeated through every page. He held the folder up. Thor 11. Electric shock ran through the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge leaned forward. The insurance lawyer stepped forward, smirking. Your Honor, Vietnam logs are notoriously disorganized. Copies could be forged. Then why? Rourke cut in. Do your records show he never served at all? Why would a man forge documentation just to be homeless? The lawyer faltered. The judge noticed. The old man swallowed hard. Your Honor, he said in a low voice, I served my country. I bled for it, carried brothers out of fire, but one clerical lie cost me everything. They erased me. The courtroom quieted. Every ear tilted toward him. I didn't want money. I didn't want medals. I wanted treatment for my injuries and food and a place to sleep. That's all. His voice cracked, a sound like something old breaking open. But they told me I was a liar. Several heads bowed. The judge nodded slowly. You will have your chance to speak in full shortly. The insurance lawyer straightened. Your Honor, we request these supposed logs be dismissed unless authenticated by the Department of Defense. The judge turned to Rourke. Can you authenticate these? Rourke took a deep breath. Not personally, but I requested a declassification review yesterday. And they responded. Rourke pulled out a sealed envelope stamped with the Pentagon insignia. The room erupted with whispers. Even the insurance lawyer's jaw dropped. The judge leaned forward. This is from the DOD? Yes, Your Honor. The judge gestured. Open it. Rourke slid a finger beneath the seal. Papers rustled. He pulled one out and handed it to the bailiff, who carried it to the judge. The judge's eyes scanned the first line, then widened, then read it again. A hush fell over the courtroom, like the air being sucked from the room. The judge lowered the paper slowly, looking directly at the old man. This document confirms, she said carefully, that Thor 11 was a classified call sign used by a Navy SEAL sniper assigned to covert missions between 1967 and 1978. Reporters gasped. Veterans stiffened. Cameras clicked. The insurance lawyer paled. And, the judge continued, it also states that records for this individual were part of an internal investigation regarding fraudulent alteration of veteran files by a private insurance contractor. The old man's breath caught. Someone in the gallery whispered, Oh my God, wait, it's true. Rourke smiled for the first time that day. The judge lifted the document again. This hearing, she said, is no longer a question of whether he served. It is now a question of what restitution is owed. The insurance lawyers scrambled, eyes wide, whispering frantically to one another. The judge turned to them. Your actions will be examined. Your fraud will be addressed. The old man stared at the table, tears slipping silently onto the wood. After decades, he was seen. He was real again. The judge tapped her gavel. Court will reconvene tomorrow for closing statements and final ruling. The room buzzed with chaos. Reporters flooded the aisles. Veterans approached the old man with trembling salutes. Rourke leaned close and whispered, You're going to win, I promise. But the old man didn't answer. He stared straight ahead, because through the crowd, the insurance company's lead lawyer was glaring at him with a smile that didn't match the rest, a smile that promised something ugly. And as the old man was wheeled out, they heard him say quietly to his team, We're not done yet. The courthouse was louder on the second day. News vans lined the street, reporters broadcasting live, microphones raised like weapons ready to strike. Veterans from every era stood shoulder to shoulder along the walkway. Vietnam vets in faded caps, Iraq vets in old fatigues, Afghanistan warriors with service dogs by their legs. All waiting, all watching, all there because word had spread across the country overnight. Thor 11 was alive, and today justice would finally speak his name. Inside the courtroom, the old man sat in his wheelchair near the front table, hands folded in his lap. His breathing was shallow, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing that after decades of silence, the world finally wanted to hear his voice. Commander Rourke sat beside him, jaw clenched, suit perfect, eyes burning with protectiveness. The judge entered. The room rose. The bailiff called order. The insurance company's lawyers shuffled anxiously, papers in trembling hands. Today, the judge said, we hear closing statements. The lead insurance lawyer rose first, his smile brittle. Your Honor, while we sympathize with the claimant, we believe his documents are insufficiently clear. Yes, a call sign Thor 11 existed, but there is no absolute guarantee that this gentleman— Rourke slammed his palm on the table before he could finish. Your Honor, the Pentagon authenticated his file, his missions, his call sign, his record. What else do they need? A time machine? The judge nodded once. Proceed carefully, counselor. The lawyer straightened, trying to recover. We simply suggest that memories can be unreliable. The courtroom erupted in angry whispers. Veterans shook their heads. Someone muttered, that snake? But the old man lifted a frail hand. Let him finish, he said softly. Silence fell again. The lawyer continued. We maintain that while this story is compelling, it is not enough to justify— Rourke stood. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge gestured. Briefly, Rourke stepped into the aisle, facing the judge, the gallery, the cameras, and the old man. Yesterday, the defense said this man could be confused, that he could be mistaken, that he could be lying. He pointed at the front table. But lies don't get men killed. Lies don't earn classified call signs. Lies don't get remembered by entire communities decades after disappearing. He turned toward the crowd. This man, he said, voice cracking, is the reason half of us survived the battles we fought. His mission stopped bomb factories, stopped assassination attempts, stopped American casualties. The gallery nodded, some wiping tears. He deserves his name back, Rourke said. He deserves his life back. And he deserves justice for the years they stole from him. He sat down. The courtroom buzzed. The judge turned to the old man. Sir, would you like to speak? He hesitated. His hands trembled. Rourke placed a steady hand on his shoulder. The old man nodded. He wheeled himself slightly forward. When I came home, he began, voice shaky at first, I wasn't expecting a parade, or medals, or handshakes. I just wanted a chance to live my life. But the moment they erased my service, everything fell apart. His eyes drifted to the table, to his hands, to memories he'd buried deep. They took my pension, locked my medical files, told me I never served. They left me with nothing but pain and a few pieces of paper they said were fake. He looked up at the judge, and everyone saw the soldier behind the wrinkles. I lost my home. I lost my wife. I lost my friends. I lost myself. A veteran in the gallery sniffed loudly, wiping his eyes. For years, the old man continued, I slept under bridges wondering if my life meant anything, wondering if my country remembered me. His voice cracked. And yesterday, for the first time, someone said they did. The courtroom fell silent. Even the insurance lawyers lowered their eyes. The judge folded her hands. Thank you, she said, voice gentle. I have heard enough. She lifted a folder stamped with the Pentagon seal. This court recognizes the authenticity of the Department of Defense statement, confirming that the claimant is, in fact, the operative formerly known as Thor 11. A closed breath escaped Rourke's throat. The judge continued. We also recognize that the fraudulent alteration of his documents resulted in wrongful denial of benefits, medical care, housing assistance, and veteran support for more than 20 years. The old man's eyes filled. Therefore, she said, voice firm, the court rules in favor of the claimant. Applause broke out instantly, but the judge raised a hand. In addition to restoring all veteran benefits effective immediately, Pinnacle Insurance is ordered to compensate him for cumulative damages in the amount of The insurance lawyer paled. $5 million. The courtroom erupted. Reporters cheered. Veterans saluted. People cried openly in the gallery. But the old man, he just stared ahead, breath trembling, hands shaking against the wheelchair armrests. Rourke leaned close. You did it, sir. No, the old man whispered. We did. Outside the courthouse, the crowd was larger than before. Hundreds of veterans lined both sidewalks, journalists everywhere, cameras flashing like fireworks. As soon as the old man appeared at the doors, every uniformed veteran raised their hand and delivered a slow, unified salute. The old man stopped. His breath hitched. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Rourke whispered, They're saluting the legend, sir. He wiped his eyes. No, they're saluting the soldier who survived. They escorted him down the steps, reporters shouting questions. But none of the noise mattered. All he could hear were the salutes. All he could see were the faces of the men who finally acknowledged him. Then, from the back of the crowd, a chant rose. Thor 11! Thor 11! Thor 11! The old man lowered his head, overwhelmed. When they reached the truck, Rourke placed a hand on his shoulder. Sir, come home with us. We'll get you housing on base, clean clothes, a doctor, everything you were denied. And if you're willing, you can teach the new generation. They need you. The old man swallowed hard. You still want me? He whispered. Rourke nodded. We never stopped. The recruits, the same ones who mocked him 2 days earlier, stood in a perfect row, uniforms crisp, backs straight, eyes full of respect. The loudest recruit stepped forward, voice shaking. Sir, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me. The old man studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You were young, he said. Now you know better. The recruit saluted, hard, snapped his boots together. Rourke opened the truck door. Let's take you home, sir. The old man wheeled himself forward slowly, every movement filled with 20 years of pain, and now 20 seconds of hope. He paused one last time and looked back at the chanting crowd, at the flags, at the salutes, at the faces of men who finally recognized him. For the first time in decades, he was not invisible. He lifted a trembling hand and saluted back. The crowd roared. And as the truck pulled away, carrying him back to the base he thought he'd never see again, he whispered 3 words through tears. I'm home again. If this story touched you, please subscribe. Help us keep these forgotten heroes alive in memory, in honor, and in the stories we share every day. Your support lets us give them the respect the world took too long to show.